It sounds like Michkov is coming. What does it mean for the Flyers, and how did this all happen? Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com, he's actually on vacation. But that story was just so big that Durso said, the hell is my vacation? Let's get it all broken down right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform. Kevin Durso. Now, where are you? You got a beach background there. What do you got? A little water.
Actually, the World Showcase in Walt Disney World.
Nice. All right. Well, it looks like a beautiful day where you are right now. Blue skies, a little water background. But this story really trumped everything. I mean, the fact that this is going to happen. Now, we talked about a month or so ago that there were some rumors, and we wanted to hear more. How did it get to the point where it is now looking official that Michkov will be a Flyer this season?
Well, this was always kind of the timeline. We had kept hearing about this end of June deadline to find out what was going to happen, whether it was going to be this year or whether it wasn't. And it really lines up. The fact that it's June, June 23rd was yesterday. That was when the report started coming out that this was going to happen. There's nothing been officially announced yet by either side of this thing. So we don't have an official announcement of the termination of the contract in the KHL. We also don't have an official confirmation of an entry-level deal from the Flyers, but that all kind of seems like more or less a formality, because it just seems like with that, if you're lining up everything else and knowing the situation, knowing that there was a possibility this could happen, it sounds like this is going to be the case. And if not by the end of today, then maybe early in the course of this week, the next day or so, you'll actually see the official announcement that this is done. And the goal at that point would then be, if it's possible, maybe get him over in time for development camp in another week, which would be great. It would definitely draw a crowd at the Flyers training center in Voorhees, but otherwise the main goal is training camp, the main training camp, and getting him here for this season if this is the way it's going to go, and it sure is looking like that right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's 19 years old, and I'm a little intrigued. We asked a question on social media whether this changes your excitement or expectations, and people have been a little measured, a little say, whoa. How would this change the team's outlook for the upcoming season if he's here, and it looks like he will be?
Yeah, I mean, the outlook is going to still be kind of what it is. They're still in a rebuild. He's one player. He's not going to make the whole team. But I do think the excitement level should be up. I think the Flyers really need this, honestly. I think they need somebody during the kind of the lean years of this rebuild that brings some attention in place. I kind of compared his situation to Eric Lindros back in the day. And when Lindros debuted as a Flyer, the team wasn't on the verge of being a contender or anything like that. But it gave you somebody to come to watch every night. He was a player that had that talent level, would give you those kind of performances, and you really wanted to see what he was going to do. And I think the same thing's going to be the case with Michkov, that you have a player who warrants the attention, who is somebody you're going to find out what he's got every single night. You're going to want to see it. And I don't think it changes expectations for either the team or him, to be honest. Like, curb your expectations for him, too. He'll be a 19-year-old rookie in the NHL, turned 20 in December. And curb your expectations. Don't go crazy with it. He's got a long career ahead of him if everything goes the way it should for him and the path he's on. But it certainly should amplify your excitement level for the team just to see a player of this caliber and have a guy be on that younger scale of potential star.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about it on the night where there's a Game 7 that is surrounded with a lot of young players that have elevated these franchises. What type of prospect are we discussing with Michkov here? Can you kind of put it into words or comparison to some of the players in the league currently?
Yeah, I mean, you start to think about the Russian players that kind of qualify in his realm, or what his potential level could be. You think about an Artemi Panarin type. This is a winger. This is a guy who's got goal scoring potential. So I think you kind of draw comparisons to him. I've seen people draw comparisons to Nikita Kucherov as well. Like, you're talking among the best of the best. You're talking about the guys that are perennial all-stars that get Hart Trophy nominations, things like that. Like, his potential is that high. And that's the exciting part. He's obviously got to deliver on that. He seems like he's a very level-headed kid. He seems like a kid who wants to seize every opportunity he has. He wants to be the best in everything he tries to do. And I think that really makes a difference. The attitude that this kid has is going to go a long way in his ability to deliver on that, to be that kind of player. So if he wants to reach those kind of lofty expectations, he's going to have to put in the work, but he seems like someone who's definitely willing to do that. And I think that's a great step for the Flyers to have a player who's kind of that cornerstone material coming soon.
What does that mean for the rest of the offseason now? Briere spoke the other day. You wrote about Briere over at 97.3 ESPN.com. What do you think it now would mean to the rest of this offseason?
I don't think it changes a whole lot, to be honest. First of all, they don't have a lot of free cap space, so it's not like they're going to be big players in the free agent market unless they were to do something very creative trade-wise. I think more than anything, and the way I kind of alluded to this is that, so if Michkov is your kind of elite playmaking winger and can turn into that, now you start to continue to look for the avenues that get you that top line center who would play with Michkov, that true stud defenseman that would be at the top of your defensive pool. You're still kind of eyeballing goaltending as well, because every team that really makes a big run has good goaltending as well, and you hope that you have something in place with some of the guys that we've talked about over the last several weeks with Eriksson and Fedotov and Kolosov, guys like that. But you start to continue to look for those steps. And I think one of the things that this does is the NHL draft is this upcoming weekend. I think it makes Danny Briere a lot more likely to potentially take a swing again, just like he did with Michkov, to go for a player that may be, high ceiling, but have a little risk attached to him as well, because you know what? It might be worth it. It may be worth it in the long run to take that swing and figure out, what can we piece together here? Can we get that level player? Because we wouldn't be, if Briere wasn't willing to take a risk, we wouldn't be talking about this, today. We wouldn't be talking about a player of this potential level, and you would have gotten another maybe run-of-the-mill guy at 7 instead. They got a player at 7 last year with this potential ceiling of talent level because they were willing to take a chance on him being willing to come over here at some point. They were willing to wait out the whole thing, but you kind of start to connect the dots that Danny Briere kept saying, if there's a way, we'd love to have him. And there's a part of his press conference last Thursday where he was asked about it, and he kind of got this wry smile on his face that in hindsight looks like, hey, I knew something you didn't know yet, and I knew all along this is going to happen, and I'm just holding it in because I can't speak yet, but when it happens, I'm going to be really excited. I got this player in my back pocket ready to come and join my team.
Right. So if that's the first domino, do you think that the draft will show us more dominoes to tip over? Are they aggressive on draft night?
Possibly, but in a different way than I think people would be thinking. I don't know if they're going to be necessarily as aggressive in their selection. There's a lot of different ways that this could go after the first overall pick of, it's going to be Macklin Celebrini who's going to San Jose. That's pretty much a given. After that, it could go a bunch of different directions. And it's really tough to say whether or not there's going to be a similar prospect to Michkov who falls to that kind of level at 7th overall. That being, or at 12th overall, if they stay there, their 7th overall has been talked about, 6th overall has been talked about. There's a lot of picks that have been out there. And that's kind of, I think, the thing where the aggression could come in is, do they make a trade on draft night to move up? I think that would be, and Briere's talked about that being on the table, that if they can make it happen, they would love to. If they can get back into the top 10, I think that would be huge for them if they could find a way to get a player they really have their eye on that maybe is the second domino of this. I think that's where the aggression could be. And let's not forget the possibility of them making a trade that involves players too. I mean, they've got a lot of different ways they could go with this. I think one of the biggest things of this offseason was figuring out whether or not this was going to happen, because if it wasn't going to happen, I think maybe you play it safe for a second and, take a little bit of time, let some things kind of even out. They've talked a lot about salary cap money and how they have to let some of this dead money come off the books before they can really be aggressive. Maybe this changes your approach and you find a player you feel like you can be a little bit more aggressive about.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see on draft night. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of indications that they might want to try to get into the top 5 and do something there. You mentioned some players on the roster. Are there any players on the current roster that you might, if you were that guy, you would probably be listening to see if your name is being mentioned?
A couple probably, yeah. Sure. So a couple players, I would say Scott Lawton's probably one.
Are you being told that you have to move?
No, I got a couple seconds. It is what it is, trying to find a quiet spot here is not easy.
What are you in, like Epcot Center and like German music playing in the background? Is that what's going on here?
I think this is Italy, actually. So it's the Italian pavilion. Either way. Scott Lawton's probably one name's going to come up. You're going to hear a lot about Travis Konechny over the next several weeks, even though I think that their goal is to keep him. Konechny's one of their most valuable chips, so I think that's going to be a way to go as well. That if they decide to keep him, whether they decide to move him, he's a guy that could be possible. I think you're going to hear Joel Farabee's name a lot too. So That's a couple of options there.
All right. Kevin Durso on vacation, Epcot Center, Italy. We'll let you get back to that as Michkov looks like he's coming over. If he doesn't go to the prospect camp, that doesn't mean that. I mean, he's good. If he's over here, he's going to be on the NHL roster, correct?
I would have to imagine so. They don't want to have it. First of all, that's part of. I think that was part of the potential contingencies of him getting out of the Russian contract was he better play NHL and not go to the minors. The most I can see being involved with that is if cap is a question, then they might have to paper move him to the AHL for a day and then get him back up once they do whatever they have to do to be cap compliant. But he's coming to play in the NHL, no question about it.
All right, Kevin Durso. More over on our website, 973ESPN.com. All right, man, enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, Kevin Durso covers the Flyers for 973ESPN.com.